Calling the police. Sometimes it helps, and sometimes it doesn't. No matter how pleasant the animal may seem, there are always risks to having an exotic pet. Charla Nash was a single, hardworking mother from Stamford, Connecticut. She led a fairly normal life, providing for her daughter, Brianna. Charla was hired as a dispatcher for a tow truck company belonging to Sandra Harold. Over time, the two bonded and became good friends. During their friendship, Charla was introduced to Sandra's pet chimpanzee, Travis. As time went on, Travis began to experience unexpected fits of rage and would go out of his way to attack pedestrians in public, despite his owner insisting he did not pose a threat to society. On the evening of February 16, 2009, Charla's life would take a turn for the worst when she was called to assist Sandra in calming down the chimp. Being a good friend, Charla obliged and drove down to the property. Charla cautiously walked towards the chimpanzee. However, before she was even able to react, Travis viciously attacked Charla and began mauling her face with his hands. In a panic, Sandra attempted to defend her friend by beating the chimp with a shovel and ultimately stabbing him with a butcher knife. The attack on Travis negatively impacted him, as he knew his owner had harmed him. This only enraged him as he continued to ravage Charla between beating and biting. Sandra made a frantic 911 call moments after stabbing Travis.
Send the police!
What's the problem there?
The chimp killed my friend! He's killing my friend!
Who's killing your friend?
My chimpanzee! Hurry up, please!
There's someone on the way.
Upon their arrival, police had no choice but to shoot Travis to death in order to stop the attack. Emergency crews at the scene described her injuries as horrendous. The chimp managed to rip chunks of her hair out of her scalp. While defending herself, Travis tore nearly every finger off her hand, leaving her severely disabled. Lacerations to her face, including her ears, nose, and eyes, had also occurred, resulting in her loss of sight. Charla continues to undergo numerous facial reconstructive surgeries since the attack, and in 2012 she received a $4 million settlement with the estate of her friend, Sandra Harold, who passed away in 2010. The innocence of a child taken far too early. It was 1991 when 6-year-old Lisa Floyd made a 911 call to emergency operators, something she was fairly accustomed to doing. Her stepfather was an alcoholic that frequently abused her biological mother, exposing both Lisa and her sibling to violence at an early age. In the following 911 recording, Lisa begs dispatchers to save her mother from the domestic violence that was taking place in their family home. The recording of Lisa has been used in organizations to bring awareness to the abuse that affects millions of children worldwide.
Oh my stepdaddy's got the baby now!
Yes, Lisa, where is he at now?
What?
Lisa, where? Hello?
Lisa is now a grown woman. She herself fell victim to an abusive relationship in her past, but she was able to get out safely. She is now an advocate for organizations that support children who fall victim to domestic violence. Being unable to save your family from certain death is a fear that many people share, and for some, unfortunately, that fear becomes a reality. On August 28, 2010, Mark Saylor and his family had plans to attend a family outing. Joined for the ride was his wife Cleo Flastrella Saylor, their daughter Mahala, and brother-in-law Chris Flastrella. Just as they made their way onto the highway, Mark began to lose control of his Lexus as the accelerator was stuck. Unable to control the car, the Lexus sped up to dangerous speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour. Fearing for the family's life, Chris instantly called 911 for help as he sat in the back of the Lexus. The following audio was recorded just moments before their devastating accident.
911 emergency, what are you reporting?
Our accelerator's stuck. We're on 125 and we're very crazy. Oh, shoot. Oh.
Okay. Hello?
Failing to control the vehicle, Mark struck the owner of a Ford Explorer just before breaking through a fence, catapulting 100 feet through the air and crashing into a riverbed alongside the San Diego freeway. The owner of the Ford Explorer sustained moderate injuries, and unfortunately, all 4 family members in the Lexus were killed in the accident. During one's adolescent years, dating is supposed to be a thrilling experience, but unfortunately, that's not the case for everyone. On New Year's Day in 2008, police were called after the bodies of 2 females were found inside of a taxicab hidden just behind an abandoned hotel parking lot in Irving, Texas. The 2 females were identified as 17-year-old Sarah Saeed and 18-year-old Amina Saeed. 2 sisters who were both shot 11 times in the vehicle belonging to their father, Yasser Abdel Saeed. Despite their father marrying a non-Muslim woman from Texas, he was extremely strict in the upbringing of his daughters and enforced them that they would eventually be sent off to Egypt to marry men inside of their own religion. Yasser kept a close eye on his daughters and began spying on them while they were out in public. In a videotape Yasser took of Sarah at her work, he exclaims his daughter would be in big trouble for smiling at a customer she was speaking to. After looking through personal notebooks and inserting an audio tape into Amina's vehicle, Yasser discovered that Amina had been dating a boy who was not of the same religion as the family. Realizing that his daughter went behind his back, he drove the girls out to pick up lunch, parked the car in a hotel parking lot, and began shooting at both sisters. Amina was in the front passenger seat and was killed instantly just as Sarah called 911 in the back seat of her father's car.
Ma'am, are you still there? All I got is she's telling me she's dying. I'm getting...
Both daughters were brutally murdered. The father of Sarah and Amina is still on the loose. The FBI is currently offering up to $100,000 for any information regarding the whereabouts of Yasser Abdel Saeed. If you have any information regarding this case, please contact the FBI's office at 202-324-3000. One moment you're fine, and in the blink of an eye, that can all change. It was July 10th, 2014 when Sharon Budd was in the passenger seat of her family car alongside her daughter Kaylee and husband Randy. As the family was driving on Interstate 80 in Pennsylvania, a 5-pound rock smashed through the vehicle's windshield, colliding with the side of Sharon's face. The unexpected accident caused shock and terror to arise as the family pulled over to the side of the road. Moments after Sharon was hit, her husband had discovered that the rock severely fractured her brain, blinding his wife in her right eye. While she struggled to breathe and stay alive, Randy called 911 in utter shock, not knowing if his wife of 31 years would make it to see another day.
Oh my gosh, something came right through the windshield. Hi, I'm on the highway, Route 80. Something just came through my windshield and it hit my wife, and I think it went right through her head. Oh my God. Can you please?
Police were able to charge 4 teenage boys for their reckless activity after they threw the rock out of their car. Sharon continues to undergo facial reconstructions. Though the accident has changed her life forever, she continues to live with high spirits and is empowered by the support she receives on a daily basis from her community. Underneath a seemingly regular boy, there was a darkness just waiting to be unleashed. Jake Evans seemed like a typical 17-year-old boy. Nothing had appeared to be out of the ordinary. He had lived with his parents and sisters in Aledo, Texas. On the evening of October 3rd, 2012, Jake used a .22 caliber to shoot his mother, Jamie, and his younger sister, Mallory, while his father and siblings were out of town. At 12:30 a.m., Jake calmly made a phone call to 911 explaining what he had just done as the bodies were left lifeless in the family home.
Killed my mom and my sister.
What?
I just killed my mom and my sister.
You just killed your mother and your sister? How did you do that?
I shot him with a .22 revolver.
Jake was apprehended and wrote a 4-page confession to his brutal actions. He formed a hatred for his family and was inspired to kill after watching the Rob Zombie remake of Halloween 3 times that same week. He also had the intention to murder his grandparents and his eldest sister, who was currently at the home of his grandparents just across the street. Jake was sentenced to 45 years in prison and will be eligible for parole in 22 years. Don't talk, just listen. Paul Michael Stephani was an American serial killer that went on to brutally murder 3 women through methods of drowning and stabbing his victims over 60 times with knives, ice picks, and screwdrivers. Throughout 1980 to 1982, he began to call 911 operators and express his deep concern after each murder. His breakdowns were recorded on each occasion, and police were eventually able to name him the Weepy Voice Killer. He became known for his line, "Don't talk, just listen," before sobbing uncontrollably to emergency operators.
Please don't talk, just listen. I'm sorry I killed that girl. I stabbed her 40 times. Kimberly Compton was the first one. Oh, my faith. I don't know what's the matter with me. I'm sick. I'm going to kill myself, I think.
On August 21st, 1982, Paul admitted himself to a hospital after one of his final victims had badly injured him. Police were able to trace the serial killer to the calls, and Paul Michael Stephani was sentenced to 40 years in prison and died in 1998 from skin cancer at the age of 53. Claiming you were under the influence of a substance is a typical excuse people might use. Michael Anderson called 911 at approximately 4:45 a.m. on February 14, 2011, after confessing to the operator that he had overdosed on cough medication, which caused him to murder and mutilate his roommate, 36-year-old Stephen Starr.
I took some pills, and the pills made me go mad, and I murdered my roommate.
You murdered your roommate?
I shot him 3 times, then I used the axe and mutilated his body.
Upon arrival, police discovered the victim's body was mutilated beyond recognition, and Michael had carved the word Joker on his victim's left chest and abdomen. Stephen was shot multiple times and was nearly decapitated after his body was chopped with an axe that Michael had owned. Michael Anderson pled guilty to second-degree murder and will spend at least 16 years in a North Carolina Department of Correction for his actions. It was supposed to be a joyous event for a new bride. Multiple calls were made to 911 on the evening of May 4th, 2013 after a limousine caught on fire while driving across the San Mateo Hayward Bridge in Foster City, California. Inside the vehicle were 9 women who were in the middle of celebrating the recent marriage of 31-year-old Nerissa Fojas, a nurse who was planning on having a second wedding with her extended family in the Philippines. The driver of the limousine, Orville Brown, called 911 in desperate need to help save the women who were trapped inside the engulfed vehicle. With the flames reaching dangerous levels, Orville stood by in panic as his passengers screamed for help.
Hello, it is help. Your hands with the favorite. The fire is burning. I cannot take it off.
5 of the women, including the bride, died as a result of smoke inhalation. 4 of the women managed to survive once firefighters made their way to the scene. It was later determined that the limo experienced mechanical issues that led to the fire. All deaths associated with the accident were ruled as accidental. The driver was left unharmed, but was fined for having more passengers than permitted. The final call from Kevin Cosgrove has gone down in history as one of the most tragic of all time. Kevin Cosgrove was a vice president of claims for Aon Corp, a company that provided insurance products for multiple businesses worldwide. On the fateful day of September 11, 2001, Kevin and his colleagues were trapped on the 105th floor of the South Tower of the World Trade Center. His 911 call made international headlines after operators captured his final moments of fear as the South Tower collapsed at 9:59 a.m. In the call, Kevin pleads for help, insisting that him and his co-workers weren't ready to die. He later told operators that he had lied to his wife after telling her that he'd already left the South Tower and was safe from danger. After hours of digging through rubble, the remains of Kevin Cosgrove were later discovered. He was given a proper burial on September 22, 2001. He is now memorialized with the thousands of victims at the National 9/11 Memorial in New York City. Kevin left behind a loving wife and 3 young children. That's all for now. Remember, while sometimes you can't prepare for it, your safety is ultimately in your hands. Be safe, be well, and be here next Wednesday. Thank you for watching. If you learned something new, please be sure to press the thumbs up button below this video. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss an episode of Seriously Strange. And I'll see you next time.